regardless of what you think your beat is, it's affected by technology. It cuts across everything.
It has been what I would think amateur attempts by journalists trying to claim that they understand technology.
So just to start out, I just want to lay out the land of where we are right now. Nitin, if you can start with what does it mean to cover this sector? You know, what do you see happening in the Indian media?
Not to sound too skeptical, but at this stage, I think we've been as gilded-eyed about it as Indian journalism has often been about a new upcoming sector in India. And I think that kind of a not so skeptical view of the industry still flourishes. We look at these startups as job providers, therefore the difficulty in not writing against them very often. There's a public mood that favors them. In India's case, there's no lack of desire, there's no lack of enterprise by journalists and these new platforms to try and grapple with it. The challenge for, I think, a lot of these brave new newsrooms, as I call them, and boutique newsrooms at times, is the sheer resources you require to tackle a subject which is not your average journalist daily bread and butter. And the layers of sifting through you require before you turn something which you know is a revelation into something which is readable. Unless you can explain an algorithm to an average citizen, your story is going to go in the dumps. Because most of us don't even understand what an algorithm is. I think for the pennies that we are putting in India into it, we're doing fairly well, but there is a huge distance for us to go.
Ayushman, moving to you. You worked on an investigative series with a colleague of yours. Can you tell us what that was about, how that came about?
Through initially a whistleblower who claimed to have access and be working on behalf of the ruling party and have access to a highly secret and sophisticated app that allowed them to carry out a number of mass social media manipulation operations concurrently. We were able to kind of dig deeper into this and discover the existence of this kind of secretive app, Tek Fog, MyCloud. It had a number of names. You know, the ability for them to influence mass discourse or public discourse is extremely significant.
So how was your story received when it finally ran?
The issue of Tek Fog was raised in Parliament by a number of opposition politicians. The government's response to that was, we searched on the App Store and Google Store, Play Store, and we could not find any Tek Fog. I mean, there is a lot more to be asked of the government in terms of having to explain how this kind of operation could have been set up under their watch.
Pete, just moving on to you, what is the role do you think journalists have? I mean, can journalists team up with technologists, with people who have way more expertise and knowledge than us? And how do we make that more user-friendly, so to speak, and actually have the impact that one hopes to have?
One of the main benefits of working with other organizations, whether that's open source intelligence, whether that's technology specialists, is that they see things we don't, particularly because they see things in a systematic way. And the other thing is also, often, as Nitin said, we don't have the skills. You know, we've had leaks that someone comes to us and says, this is incredible, this is massively exciting, this is enormously relevant, and you open it up and it's just 100 pages of symbols. And you think, I don't know what I'm looking at. And you need somebody there who has the technical skills, who has the knowledge, who has the understanding to look at it and go, oh yeah, this matters.
Some of the best technological coverage or coverage of technology and its use in society, I think has come out of collaborations between journalists and technologists working very closely with each other, whether on record or off record.
Academics are a fantastic source for this because this is what they do. The most important way to do it is just to build trust. You know, there are people that you work with for years and years and years, and finally they come to you and they say, you know what I've just found. And that's what this is. And again, the field is really new, right? I'm very hopeful that give it a few more years and we're going to start seeing those people who've left big tech companies, who have all the skills, who understand what algorithms look like. They go into academia, they go into individual research. And I think that narrow definition of what a tech journalist is changing quite fundamentally.
Can you just lay out for us why is it important to report on tech? What is at stake? And how can that backfire?
Something that I think about a lot is that technology isn't really a subject anymore. It's the environment that everyone operates in. It's regardless of what you think your beat is, it's affected by technology. It cuts across everything. You can't operate in any of the traditional beats that were there when I was coming up without some foundational understanding of technology and the businesses behind it. And as Ayushman said, it's a human story. So much of our daily interaction is mediated with technology. Our experience of global events, as we're seeing in Ukraine, is mediated through technology platforms and the decisions that those technology platforms make. We use technology very intuitively these days, but we don't understand how it's built and what decisions it's based on. And I think that's why it matters.
Is there a good tech story from a bad tech story when it comes to all these issues?
I'll start with a bad one because I think it frames it. A bad technology story is one which is credulous. It's one which leads towards the idea that tech is a solution, it will save us. And I think for a very long time there was a reverence towards this kind of mythic great entrepreneur. And you still see it, you see it with the Elon Musks of the world, who become almost sacred entities. They can't be challenged and they have the solution. Whether that's internet by satellite or electric vehicles, they have the solutions. And uncritically getting overexcited by this, I think as Nitin said this earlier, and not diving into the business models, not diving into the decisions, not diving into the impacts, leads us into dangerous territory. And I don't want to maybe overstate it, but I think that some of the issues we're seeing, the misinformation, the mainstream information manipulation, financial behaviours that are somewhat risky, political tensions that have been amplified by algorithms, these could have been limited with a little less credulous reporting early on. But the converse, I think a good story is one that understands that technology has all those different stakeholders. There's always going to be a balance, but this is traditional journalism skills, right? Is this clear? Am I showing off? Am I showing people what they need to see? Am I repeating what a tech company's told me? Because they love to use jargon to slightly confuse the facts. I think that's very much, it is a journalism classroom question, but it's still one we have to get right. And I think, again, as I said earlier, the blending of tech journalism with other things has made that better. We are better at getting what's relevant and explaining what we need to explain.
I do think the ability to know laws, regulations, and have a moral framework when you question anything that you don't understand is very essential. Most fantastic stories, as Ayushman said, of tech being human stories is where we understand the human society better as journalists and how it interacts.
I think it's absolutely essential to work alongside journalists such as Pete and Nitin to be able to communicate what we're seeing, this data, in a way that will actually make a difference in the way that people comprehend this information, and perhaps even in terms of being able to put pressure on some of these organizations to stop what they're doing. Because I think that from just looking in from the tech perspective is like an incomplete part of the story, because as we've kept saying, it's the other aspect of it, the humans behind this technology, the people who are working on the ground, who are both carrying out some of these techniques, but also who are facing the brunt of these techniques. Those connections can only be fleshed out once we do the legwork that journalists actually do on a day-to-day basis. And so only until we combine and work with them will we be able to both address the technology but also the actual societal effects of this technology, both of those issues.